So what I'm trying to do here, obviously, we've talked before. I really think you're a cool guy. I don't know you very well at all, but I'm trying to like pull myself out of the conversation almost, and I just ask questions and like try to push on whoever I'm talking to.
Sure.
Not like push like it's gonna be a neg conversation or something, but just like try to flesh out, perspectives and try to kind of push on certain ideas. So I don't know. You're cool with that?
Yeah.
That sounds good. So and you can leave whenever you want, like I said. Okay. So I think you. I don't have to get personal. I remember you telling me you were a Christian.
Right. Yes.
That's cool. What church do you go to?
I actually haven't really been going to church much lately, but
that's fair.
For a little bit, I've just kind of been going around to different churches.
Oh, okay.
Just
trying to figure. Are you trying to find a place to go to church, or?
I mean, I guess in some respects that would make sense, but
you just want to be cultured in all different.
I was kind of like, I remember asking myself as I started believing more and more. I was like, what is a Christian? And
yeah,
I was just like, oh, that doesn't make sense then if I'm asking myself that question. And I just go to the same church over and over and over again. Not that I had anything against the church I was going to. I mean, it was an awesome church. But yeah, it just didn't make sense to me to not at least go to other places around town. And then just kind of fill in that question from personal experience of like what I think a Christian is. And so that was kind of where I've been at with it recently.
Well, I think that's a good starting point. So your quest in this church exploration is trying to answer the question, what is a Christian?
Right.
Where have you gotten so far on that question?
I mean, as of now, it's definitely like, I mean, like, obviously I would say I'm in the infancy of really kind of answering that, because to me, I don't know, I guess I could kind of say that is the question, what is a Christian? And then the thing that my mind immediately goes to is just kind of the vastness of the human experience.
Yeah.
And how, as I've kind of grown, I relate more and more of it, if not all of it, to God's intention in creation. And when you begin to do that, at least for me, it starts incorporating more and more things. Maybe things that you wouldn't consider ideally Christian in someone that calls himself Christian, or maybe you have people that fit some ideal that you kind of made in your head that exists as a poster child. I mean, I guess there ends up being this whole spectrum of things when you begin to consider that kind of all of it, good, bad, ugly, the whole experience, everything that falls in and out of sin. Like, it's not like some condoning of anything bad, but I mean, God in my mind is to blame for all of it, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but I mean that in the sincerest sense, that all of it, the whole thing, every bit of it.
Well, he is. I'm trying to keep myself out of the conversation. So, in a Christian worldview, then he is the source of all things, right?
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna speak as myself.
Sure.
Okay, but I'm not gonna try to make a bunch of positive claims.
Right. No, I understand.
So he's the source of all things then. So it would make sense that all things kind of reflect his nature to some degree.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Right. And then to our capacity as people, we can categorize things, good, bad, and whatnot, but then kind of get lost in the fact that, I mean, all of it kind of exists because of him. Yeah. Right. And so then kind of to go back when I'm thinking to myself, okay, like if I had to imagine, or if I had to answer that question of what is a Christian, I don't know, that's why I kind of wanted to go see just as many people as I could that called themselves Christians. Yeah. Because for all I know, my capacity to understand things is limited to me being a human being.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I was going with God kind of being the progenitor, because maybe we really in this lifetime can't fully understand how everything works together in some sense, and that we kind of just have to go into life with an orientation, a goal, a mission, and use reason, because we've been given it, to kind of figure it out. I mean, I guess that gets kind of preachy in some respects, but I am the dialogue in my mind is like, how do we even begin to start categorizing something like that?
There's like 1,000 ways I could go with this. It's so tricky because this is very complicated. So we made this. We're talking about what is a Christian really, but we also had to mention the fact that everything is, in a sense, from this worldview, sourced from
God. Yeah.
God, and so therefore, in a sense, it should either reflect His nature, and some theologian might say like a sinful thing is still like reflecting the nature of God, but it's distorted,
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
And so I kind of see where you're going, but it's also kind of a vague answer, I would say, just because like we can't say, okay, what is a Christian? Well, everything is a Christian.
Right.
So
Right. It says nothing.
Yeah, right. But, which is fine because you're saying something in the sense that everything reflects God's nature, and that's
Right.
very legitimate. I actually wouldn't mind getting more into that, but I guess if we were to try to focus on that question, we probably need to get a bit more specific.
Right. Right.
So I guess how would you go about that?
So I guess that's kind of where I got to this question in the first place, because as you get more specific and you really like try to start answering, see that's where I get caught up, because it's like, what, it is a definitive thing, what I mean, like, and it even explicitly says, in a lot of senses, it's explicitly stated, like, as Christians do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
and so
is it our actions?
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
If we're saved by grace, then our actions can't make us saved, but I guess in some respect, they also can't unsave us,
Wait, I turned on the mic, right?
I think so.
Did you clap?
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be funny. But no, and
sorry if I derailed you.
no, you're all good. You're all good. I do get derailed easily though, but so
You're talking about grace?
right. So it's like with our actions, and so I mean, I guess so. Being a Christian is a specific thing. So then it's like, but wait, if my life just is going to be this constant struggle to be saved, or I guess like a battle, to be saved, it definitely puts this,
maybe puts a weird flavor onto what this life should be considered to be.
right. What, like, so I mean, I guess I'm trying to say, like, with the church that I was going to for a little bit, I kind of was like, compared to these guys, I guess I'm just not a Christian. You know what I mean? Like, so like a lot of it was, hey, now that you go to church here,
What kind of church was it?
I was just a non-denominational, and honestly, like, the way that it was orchestrated, I don't even blame them for the way that they have it set up. I mean, as far as just outreach specifically towards colleges, it's, I think, really smart and very useful for getting kids, kind of like out of just like a completely worldly setting, and at least introduce them to people that believe. But as I started going more and more, I kind of realized it's like, okay, these people expect something of me, which I don't think was wrong at all. But I started to realize, given my circumstances just in relation to Fort Collins and this town this town in general, I was like, so wait, if in my head I was like, so if this doesn't fit me, if this mold doesn't fit me as far as my approach to God, then I'm not a Christian. And I was like, there's no way that's true.
So what mold? Like, is it just the participation within that particular church?
Right. Like, now all your friends are going to be Christians now. You're going to live with them, and steel sharpens steel. And it is absolutely, I think, very sound logic, if I'm going to be completely frank with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But again, and this kind of goes back to my whole what is a Christian idea, or I mean, just kind of mulling it over, because then it's like, wait, okay, so then I'm not a Christian. I guess I kind of felt that way in some respects, but then I'm like, but wait, I believe in God. I believe that He manifested as Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and came to this earth, and all the things in the Bible did happen, and all of it exists as a means of understanding the reality that we live in and the truth that exists inside of it. So I'm like, but my actions And so I was like, well, then wait. If I don't know definitively what a Christian is, and I go to this church and it's like, maybe these people are Christians, I was like, would it still not be, I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, at one point I was like, this is God's intervention, and it really felt like that. But then in another, I was like, well, wait. Just go, everybody, like, of course you're going to run into people that go to church outside of campus when they're here all the time.
Yeah.
Like, eventually the mysticism kind of wipes away from all of it. And but
I'm gonna be a cynic for
Sure.
a second. Not like an atheistic sort of cynic, but maybe
Sure.
just a
Critical.
a cynic of a in a certain sense. So then is all a Christian, if a Christian isn't the church, because it can be, because there's a million churches, and participation in one church can't constitute being a Christian, because everyone can't go to that one church unless you're Catholic.
Right. Right.
So in that sense, then is it reduced to, like, would someone say, okay, Christianity is just a proposition that says Jesus raised from the dead, he was incarnate as God and raised from the dead for your sins. There's this kind of proposition, and you just have a box next to it and you say, I agree with that proposition. Is that what constitutes Christianity? And then all of a sudden you go to heaven because you checked the box?
Right.
Is that...
Right. No, I totally get what you're saying. That is
Yeah.
an absolutely fair point. And I mean, I guess, okay, honestly, this is how I frame it in my mind. Like, you can absolutely just make your Christianity that.
Yeah.
And, I guess it's easy to say that's the wrong way to do it. But one part of me just lets go of that. Who even knows? Who even knows? If someone believes in Christianity that simplistically, and yet they're the one that volunteer once a week and still, you know what I mean, do good things. Like,
like tell the tree by its fruit.
Right. Like, who, in some respects, it's like, who cares? But
Yeah.
I think the thing is like, again, if God created all of it, he kind of knows how it works. And so it's knowing that, checking the box, you can certainly start there.
And what does it mean to check the box?
Right.
That's another. It's
Right.
like, what does it mean to accept a proposition?
See that all the words in the Bible exist as metaphors, allegories, and whatnot, and then you use that as like a blueprint to just live life. To me, is like, if I was genuinely trying to answer that, only because, like, that's where it actually becomes a habit. Because if it's like, okay, now you believe and you can understand that this is the architect, this is the architecture, follow the rules, follow the guidelines, and you will be prosperous in life. If you can admit that, then in some ways being a Christian becomes implementing those actions into your life and treating the world as if it was created by God. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is that it's not a proposition that you check a box next to. It's more of a story that you participate in.
A story you participate in, and even more so, a lens by which you see the world through, and then gives you the ability to participate in that story.
Okay.
So that's really what you ultimately submit to in some respects, is that, like, ultimately the world was created by an intelligent being who sent his son to Earth. And so in some ways, when I talk to my friends, it's like, look, you shouldn't do, like, okay, look, you don't do premarital sex. I mean, you shouldn't do premarital sex because it's a sin, it's wrong. God's watching, don't do it, sure. But also, just as a pragmatic piece of advice, not sleeping with someone before marriage allows you to make such a clear and conscious choice about the matter. And it's just so practical to actually apply that in your life that it just blows my mind that it's like, people like don't, and then the alternatives exist, and now here we are decades out from those alternatives and everyone's miserable, So it's just funny because, like, you do, no matter what, as long as you entertain and discuss the idea, in some respects, that makes you in some ways a Christian. And in some ways, what I've started saying in my mind is, like, honestly, if it comes with so much that when I'm amongst this group of people, I'm not a Christian, then maybe I'm not a Christian. But you know what? I'll at least say I'm a follower of Christ. Does that work? I'm not perfect. And, I guess I'm really not you guys. I'm not that. But if you think I don't believe this and that it hasn't begun shaping my entire worldview, you're crazy. And now I'm just waiting to truly, by grace, really be saved and have a repentant heart that allows me to change my actions. And I think part of that process for a lot of people is realizing that you should change your actions because God, absolutely, he tells you to be remolded and whatnot. But also, it's just good advice.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, it really is just good advice, and you should just follow it because you're going to end up being in a better place.
Fair enough. And so the advice that you're talking about, that is good advice, isn't always 99% of the time actually it's not in propositional form. Like, it's not like the Bible is like a list of things you ought to do. And even if it was good advice, like, that's not what it looks like.
Right.
It's more of like a story, or in kind of a cosmic story.
Right. It's almost like it's like part scientific in some regards, because even what you just said with judging a tree by its fruit. Here we have these things called trees, whatever, and they just happen to, based off the conditions in their environment that they're in, as long as they're appropriate, produce these harvests from them that happen to be consumable by people.
And that reflects the way humans operate on a kind of a fractal.
Right, and so you can point to that. You can point to that expression, for example, and say you can judge a tree by its fruits.
Yeah.
And we have the natural world that reflects some type of truth to that, but then we also have that, when we take another step back and can admit, okay, well, then it was all created intellectually, and then there's truly a purpose behind everything, including our lives.
Yeah.
Then we can look at the way that nature prospers, and then maybe with an intellectual bent, look at that and wonder, hey, what does that say about my form, my being here? If God's going to go and create plants the way that they are intentionally, maybe there is some reflection of that we can use to better our lives. And then you can say that and then look at a lot of poetry that used to be made back 100 or so years ago, and a lot of it was about nature, and a lot of it was about relating that to the human experience, and I just don't think that that's coincidental.